Hey there, story lovers. Can you imagine a super quiet neighborhood? Kids are laughing and playing tag in the yards. Birds are singing happy songs in the trees. Everything feels calm and nice, like a perfect summer day. But then, oh, she shows up. Her name is Karen and she acts like she's the boss of the whole street. Everyone calls her the HOA queen because she's always telling people what to do. She walks around with her nose in the air, like she owns every house, every tree, every blade of grass. But today is not like any other day. Something big is about to happen, and you're gonna want to hear all about it. My name's Jake. I'm just a regular guy who lives on Maple Street. I like to hang out, chat with my neighbors, and maybe mow my lawn when it gets too wild. But recently I did something new. I put a super cool bench right in front of my house. Not just any bench though, this one's special. It's a smart bench. It's got Wi-Fi so people can use the internet. It's got spots to charge your phone. It even lights up a little at night so it looks awesome. I thought, wow, everyone's gonna love this. The kids could sit on it and play games on their tablets. Grown-ups could relax and check their emails. It was gonna be the best thing on the block, or so I thought. But Karen, nope, she didn't think my bench was cool at all. To her, it wasn't a fun new thing for the neighborhood. It was trouble. The second she saw it, her eyes got all squinty and I could tell she was already planning something. I had no idea what was coming, but let me tell you, Karen was about to make a huge mistake. Her big plan to get rid of my bench, it's gonna backfire in the funniest, most surprising way. Trust me, you're not gonna want to miss a single second of this story. Oh, quick thing before we keep going. Have you ever had a neighbor who's super nosy or always causing drama? Like maybe they complain about your dog barking or your Halloween decorations. Tell me about it in the comments. I love hearing your stories. And if you think crazy tales like this are fun, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Okay, let's get back to that sunny Saturday when it all started. I woke up feeling great. The sky was bright blue, not a cloud in sight. I could hear kids riding their bikes down the street, their bells going ding ding ding. I decided it was the perfect day to set up my new bench. I'd ordered it online a few weeks ago, and when it arrived, I was so excited. It came in a big box, and I spent all morning putting it together. It wasn't easy, there were tons of screws and pieces, but I finally got it done. By noon, it was ready. I dragged it out to the edge of my front yard, right near the sidewalk, and stepped back to admire it. The bench was shiny and modern looking. It had a smooth wooden seat with a metal frame that sparkled in the sun. On one side, there was a little panel with plugs for charging phones. On the other side, there was a tiny screen that showed if the Wi-Fi was working. I even tested it out myself. I sat down, connected my phone to the bench's Wi-Fi, and watched a funny cat video. It worked perfectly. I was so proud. I thought, this is gonna make everyone happy. People will sit here, relax, maybe even make new friends. I could already imagine neighbors stopping by to say hi, thanking me for such a cool idea. I went inside to grab a glass of lemonade, feeling like I'd done something really good for the neighborhood. But when I came back out, guess who was standing there, staring at my bench like it was a giant pile of garbage? Yup, Karen. She had her arms crossed and her face looked like she just bit into a sour lemon. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight, and she was wearing a bright pink shirt that said HOA President in big letters. She always wore that shirt like it was a crown or something. Jake, she shouted, loud enough for the whole street to hear. I froze, my lemonade almost spilling. What is this? She pointed at the bench like it was a monster from a scary movie. I tried to stay calm. Oh hey, Karen, I said, smiling. It's my new bench, pretty neat, right? It's got Wi-Fi and everything. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd think it was cool too. But nope, her frown got even bigger. This is not allowed, she snapped. It's ugly and it's against the rules. I blinked. Ugly? Against the rules? I didn't get it. Karen, it's just a bench, I said. People can sit on it, charge their phones, use the internet. What's wrong with that? But she wasn't listening. She pulled out a little notebook from her pocket and started writing something down, muttering to herself. "You'll hear from the HOA about this," she said, giving me one last glare before stomping off down the sidewalk. I stood there, confused. I mean, sure, Karen was always picky. She yelled at my neighbor Tom for painting his fence blue instead of white. She told Mrs. Lopez her roses were too bright for the neighborhood. But a bench, really? I looked at it again. It didn't seem ugly to me. It was clean, shiny, and honestly kinda fancy. I figured Karen was just having a bad day. Maybe she'd forget about it by tomorrow. Spoiler alert, she didn't. As the afternoon went on, I started noticing little things. Kids stopped by to check out the bench. A couple of them sat down and plugged in their game controllers. "Whoa, this is awesome," one kid said, his eyes wide. An older lady, Mrs. Carter, walked by with her dog and smiled. "What a nice idea, Jake," she said. "This'll be great for the neighborhood." Hearing that made me feel good again. I thought, see, Karen's wrong, people like it. But then I saw Karen again. She was across the street talking to another neighbor, Mr. Jenkins. She kept pointing at my bench, waving her arms around like she was super mad. Mr. Jenkins just nodded, but he didn't look happy. I got a weird feeling in my stomach. What was she saying? Was she trying to get everyone to hate my bench? I didn't know it yet, but Karen was already planning something big. She wasn't just gonna complain. She was gonna try to make sure my bench disappeared for good. That night I sat on my porch watching the sunset. The bench glowed a little under the streetlights, looking peaceful. A couple of teenagers were sitting on it, laughing and watching something on their phones. It was exactly what I'd hoped for, but I couldn't shake the thought of Karen. Why did she care so much? It was just a bench. I had no idea then, but Karen wasn't just mad about some silly rule. She was hiding something she didn't want anyone to know. And my bench. It was about to ruin everything for her. The next morning, I woke up to a surprise. There was a note taped to the bench. It was written in big, angry letters. "Take this down or else." I didn't need to guess who it was from. Karen was turning this into a war, and I wasn't sure why. But I wasn't gonna let her win that easily. I decided right then and there I was keeping my bench no matter what. Little did I know, things were about to get way crazier. See, Karen thought she was the smartest person on the block. She thought she could boss everyone around and get away with it. But she didn't know one thing: my bench wasn't just a place to sit. It had a secret that was gonna turn her whole world upside down. Wanna know what it was? Stick around, because this story's just getting started and the best part's coming soon. Hey, one more time, drop a comment and tell me, would you put up a cool bench like mine, even if it made your neighbor mad? Let's see what you think. Okay, let's dive back into the story. Things are about to get a little wild. So there I was, standing in my front yard, staring at my awesome new smart bench. It was shiny, it had Wi-Fi, and people were already loving it. Kids were sitting on it, charging their phones, and neighbors were giving me thumbs up. Everything seemed perfect until Karen showed up. Oh boy, did she make a scene. Karen came marching across the street, her sneakers stomping so loud I could hear them from my porch. She was holding a clipboard, gripping it so tight it looked like she might break it. Her face was all red and her eyes were super angry. "Jake," she yelled, pointing right at my bench like it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. "This thing is against HOA rules, it's ugly, and it's gotta go." I was shocked. Ugly, my bench, it was the coolest thing on the block. I took a deep breath and tried to stay nice. "Karen," I said, smiling, "it's just a bench. People really like it. It's got Wi-Fi and places to charge phones. What's the problem?" But Karen didn't care. Her eyes got all squinty, like she was trying to shoot lasers at me. She started scribbling something on her clipboard, her pen moving so fast it almost flew out of her hand. "You'll regret this," she hissed, her voice low and mean. Then she turned around and stormed off, her pink HOA president shirt flapping as she went. I stood there, scratching my head. What was that all about? I mean, sure, Karen was always grumpy. She was the kind of person who'd complain about anything. Last month, she told my neighbor Sally her garden had too many flowers. Too many flowers. Who even says that? And then there was the time she got mad at Mr. Thompson because his mailbox was green instead of black. Karen was always finding something to fuss about. So at first, I just shrugged it off. I thought, she's just being Karen. She'll get over it. But I was wrong. Karen wasn't done, not even close. The next day, I started noticing weird stuff. I was watering my grass when I saw her car drive by my house. Real slow, like creepy slow. She was staring at my bench the whole time, her lips all tight and frowny. It was like the bench had personally insulted her or something. I waved, trying to be friendly, but she just sped up and zoomed away. That's when I got a funny feeling in my stomach. Something wasn't right. Later that afternoon, I went for a walk to clear my head. That's when I ran into my neighbor, Mrs. Carter. She's super nice and always walks her little dog, Sparky. Jake, she said, looking worried, be careful with Karen. I heard her talking to someone on the phone. She's really mad about your bench. She said she's gonna make sure it's gone. I frowned. Gone? Why does she care so much? Mrs. Carter shrugged. I don't know, but she's up to something. Just watch out. Now I was starting to get curious. Why was Karen so obsessed with my bench? It wasn't hurting anyone. In fact, people loved it. Just that morning, I saw a kid named Timmy sitting on it, playing a game on his tablet. An older guy, Mr. Lopez, was there too, charging his phone and reading a book. They both told me how awesome the bench was. So why was Karen acting like it was a giant problem? I decided to keep my eyes open. The next day, things got even stranger. I was taking out the trash when I saw Karen again. This time, she was standing on the sidewalk across from my house, talking to another neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. Karen was waving her arms around, pointing at my bench and talking super loud. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught a few words. Rules. Disgrace. Get rid of it. Mrs. Jenkins just nodded, but she didn't look happy. When Karen finally left, I walked over to Mrs. Jenkins. Hey, I said, what was Karen going on about? She sighed. Oh, Jake, she's telling everyone your bench is against the rules. She says it's making the neighborhood look bad. I couldn't believe it, making the neighborhood look bad. My bench was the best thing on the street. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized Karen wasn't just complaining. She was trying to get everyone on her side. She wanted the whole neighborhood to hate my bench and maybe even hate me. But why? What was her deal? I didn't know yet, but I had a feeling there was more to this than just some silly HOA rule. Over the next few days, Karen kept up her weird behavior. One morning, I caught her taking pictures of the bench with her phone. She was standing there, snapping photo after photo, like she was a detective or something. When she saw me watching, she stuffed her phone in her pocket and hurried away. Another time, I saw her writing more stuff in her notebook while staring at my house. It was starting to feel like she was spying on me. Then something really creepy happened. I woke up one morning and found another note taped to the bench. It was in big, messy letters, and it said, "Get rid of this now or you'll be sorry." I knew it was from Karen. Who else would do something like that? I ripped the note off and tossed it in the trash, but I was starting to get mad. This wasn't just about a bench anymore. Karen was turning it into a big fight, and I wasn't sure why. I talked to another neighbor, Tom, who lives next door. He's a cool guy who always has funny stories. Jake, he said, shaking his head, Karen's been acting strange for a while. She's always poking her nose into everyone's business, but with your bench, it's like she's gone nuts. He leaned closer and whispered, I heard she's been calling the city, trying to get them to take it away. My eyes got wide. The city for a bench, Tom nodded. Yup, she's serious. That's when I knew this was bigger than I thought. Karen wasn't just being her usual grumpy self. She was planning something big, something to make sure my bench was gone for good. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't gonna give up so easily. My bench was making people happy and I was gonna fight to keep it. Plus, I was starting to wonder if Karen was hiding something. Why was she so desperate to get rid of it? Was there a secret she didn't want anyone to find out? I didn't have the answers yet, but I was determined to figure it out. Alright, let's keep this story rolling. Things were getting super strange in my neighborhood, and it was all because of Karen and her crazy war against my smart bench. Days went by after her big yelling scene, and instead of calming down, Karen's attacks got even weirder. I thought she'd get tired of complaining, but nope, she was just getting started. And let me tell you, what happened next made me realize this wasn't just about a bench anymore. Something big was going on, and I was about to find out what. At first, it was little things. One morning, I walked outside to check on my bench, and there was a note taped to it. It was written in big, angry letters. "Remove this now." I knew right away it was from Karen. Who else would leave a mean note like that? I pulled it off and crumpled it up, but it made me mad. My bench wasn't hurting anyone. Kids were using the Wi-Fi to play games, and grown-ups were charging their phones while they chatted. Everyone loved it, everyone except Karen. The next day, there was another note. This one said, "This bench is trouble." I rolled my eyes. Trouble? It was a bench, not a monster. But Karen wasn't stopping there. She started telling people it was dangerous. Can you believe that? I overheard her talking to my neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, while they were out walking. "That bench is a hazard," Karen said, her voice all serious. "Someone could trip over it or get shocked by those plugs." Mrs. Lopez just nodded, but she looked confused. "I mean, come on, a bench isn't gonna shock anyone. It was super safe, with all the wires tucked away neatly." Karen was making stuff up, and I didn't know why. Then something really odd happened. I was mowing my lawn one afternoon when I saw Karen across the street. She was standing by my bench, holding her phone up and taking pictures of it. Snap, snap, snap. She must have taken a dozen photos. She was muttering to herself too, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. When she noticed me watching, her face turned red and she stuffed her phone in her pocket real quick. Then she hurried away, practically running. I stood there, my lawnmower still humming, thinking, what is her deal? Why is she acting so sneaky? That's when I started to feel like something was off. Karen wasn't just being her usual grumpy self. She was up to something, and it was more than just hatting my bench. I decided to talk to my neighbor, Tom, who always knows what's going on. Tom's a funny guy who loves telling stories about the neighborhood. I found him in his garage, fixing his bike. "Hey, Tom," I said, "have you noticed Karen acting weird about my bench?" He laughed and wiped his hands on a rag. "Weird, Jake, she's obsessed. She's been telling everyone it's against the rules. But that's not all. She's been calling the city." My jaw dropped. "The city for a bench?" Tom nodded, his eyes wide. "Yup, I heard her on the phone the other day saying it's illegal and needs to be taken down. She's going all out, man, be careful." I thanked Tom and walked back to my house, my head spinning. Illegal? My bench wasn't breaking any laws. I'd checked the rules before I put it up. Karen was trying way too hard to get rid of it, and I wanted to know why. That's when I started paying closer attention to her. I didn't want to be a nosy neighbor myself, but I had to figure out what was going on. The next few days, I kept an eye out, and guess what? Karen wasn't just bugging me. She was sneaking around other houses too. One evening, I saw her walking by Mrs. Carter's house, writing something in her little notebook. She looked left and right, like she didn't want anyone to see her. Another time, I caught her standing by Mr. Jenkins' mailbox, talking on her phone in a hushed voice. She kept saying stuff like, "I'll take care of it and no one will know." It was super suspicious. I started to wonder, what was Karen hiding? Was she just mad about my bench, or was there something bigger going on? I decided it was time to do some digging of my own. I wasn't gonna let her scare me into taking down my bench without a fight, so I started asking around. I talked to Mrs. Lopez, who said Karen had been acting strange for weeks, not just about my bench, but about all kinds of things. "She's always writing in that notebook," Mrs. Lopez said. "I don't know what she's up to, but it's not good." Then I got a big clue. My friend Sarah, who lives a few streets over, stopped by to check out the bench. She's super smart and knows a lot about the neighborhood. "Jake," she said, leaning in close, "I heard something you should know. Karen's been telling the HOA board that your bench is ruining property values, but I think she's using it as an excuse. I saw her at the community center looking at some old papers. She seemed nervous, like she didn't want anyone to see what she was doing. Papers, nervous. That got my attention. What kind of papers? I asked. Sarah shrugged. I couldn't tell, but they looked official. Maybe you should check it out. I thanked her and decided to do just that. The next day, I went to the community center where the HOA keeps records. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I figured I'd know it when I saw it. The lady at the desk was nice and let me look through some files. Most of it was boring stuff, meeting notes, budgets, that kind of thing. But then I found something weird. There was a folder labeled HOA fines. Inside were papers about people who hadn't followed the rules. And guess whose name was on a bunch of them? Karen's. Turns out she'd been breaking rules for years. Stuff like painting her house without permission and putting up a fence that was too tall. She owed a ton of money in fines, but somehow she'd never paid them. I stared at the papers, my heart racing. Was this why she was so mad about my bench? Was she trying to distract everyone from her own problems? I took a picture of the papers with my phone just in case. I didn't know what it all meant yet, but it was a huge clue. Karen wasn't just being mean, she was hiding something big. And my bench, it was like a spotlight shining on her secrets. I went home, my mind buzzing with questions. What else was she hiding? Was she scared I'd find out? And what was she gonna do next? I didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. Karen was in trouble and she knew it. She thought she could bully me into taking down my bench, but I was starting to see the truth. This wasn't just about a bench anymore. It was about Karen's lies, and I was getting closer to figuring them out. Okay, story lovers, hold on tight. This is where things get really exciting. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was just chilling at home, eating a sandwich and watching some TV. My smart bench was still outside, making people happy with its Wi-Fi and phone chargers. I thought maybe, just maybe, Karen had finally given up her silly fight against it. Boy, was I wrong. What happened next was so wild, it felt like something out of a movie. You're gonna love this. So I'm sitting there, munching on my sandwich, when all of a sudden I hear this loud noise. Woo woo woo, sirens. My heart started pounding. I jumped up and ran to the window. Outside, red and blue lights were flashing like crazy. Police cars were parked right in front of my house. I felt my stomach twist. What was going on? Then I saw her, Karen. She was standing on my front lawn holding her phone, and she had the biggest smirk on her face. It was like she'd just won a prize or something. I opened my door and stepped outside, trying to figure out what was happening. Karen saw me and pointed at my bench. I called 911, she shouted, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Your bench is a public hazard, Jake. It's dangerous and now you're in big trouble. Her voice was so smug, like she thought she'd finally beaten me. I just stood there, my mouth open, totally confused. A hazard, my bench, it was the safest thing ever. Kids sat on it to play games and old folks used it to rest. How could it be dangerous? I looked at the police cars, expecting the officers to come talk to me. I was ready to explain everything, how the bench was awesome, how Karen was making stuff up. But then something totally crazy happened. The cops didn't walk toward me. No, they walked straight to Karen. Her smirk disappeared faster than ice cream on a hot day. Her eyes got super wide and her face turned pale. One of the officers, a tall guy with a serious look, said, "Ma'am, we need to talk. We've had complaints about you." I swear the whole street went quiet. It was like someone hit the mute button on the world. Neighbors started peeking out of their houses. Mrs. Carter was on her porch holding her dog Sparky. Tom was by his garage, his jaw practically on the ground. Even the kids riding bikes stopped to stare. Karen looked like she wanted to run away, but her feet were glued to the grass. "Emmy," she stammered. "There must be a mistake. I'm the one who called you. It's his bench that's the problem." She pointed at me, but the officer just shook his head. I was so confused, but I stayed quiet, watching it all unfold. My heart was racing. This was getting juicy. Then the officer said something that made everyone gasp. "Ma'am, we're not here about the bench. We're here because people have reported you causing trouble." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked like a fish out of water, just flapping her lips. I couldn't believe it. Complaints about Karen? What was going on? Then it hit me. My bench wasn't the problem, Karen was, and I had proof. See, my smart bench wasn't just cool because of the Wi-Fi and chargers. It had a tiny camera built in, hidden so nobody could see it. I turned it on a few days ago because Karen was acting so sneaky. I wanted to keep an eye on things just in case, and oh boy did that camera catch some stuff. It recorded Karen doing all kinds of weird things. I had footage of her sneaking around my yard at night, trying to mess with the bench. One time, she even tried to unplug the charger, but she couldn't figure it out and gave up. She looked so mad, shaking her fist at it like the bench had insulted her. But that wasn't all. Remember how my neighbor Sarah told me Karen was acting strange? She'd seen Karen looking at some papers at the community center, all nervous like she was hiding something. That tip got me curious, so I'd gone to the library and checked some public records online. It was super easy, just a few clicks. And guess what I found? Karen had been breaking HOA rules for years. She'd done stuff like painting her house a color she wasn't allowed to and building extra stuff in her backyard without asking. She owed a ton of money in fines, like thousands of dollars, but she'd been dodging them, pretending she was perfect while pointing fingers at everyone else. It was all starting to make sense. Karen wasn't mad about my bench because it was ugly or dangerous. She was mad because it was getting attention she didn't want. People were hanging out on it, talking, noticing things, and Karen was scared that someone would figure out she wasn't the perfect HOA queen she pretended to be. She'd been blaming me to distract everyone.